So, social media is still buzzing after the announcement that AEW wrestler and the first ever AEW World Champion, by the way, Le Champion himself, Chris Jericho, will be appearing on Steve Austin's The Broken Skull Sessions on the WWE Network on WrestleMania Sunday next week. Social media was stunned by the news, shocked by the news when it was announced yesterday, but what was really fortuitous about this announcement yesterday is that basically the announcement was made and then just a few minutes afterwards, Triple H had a media call hyping up the NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver event coming next week. So Triple H gave his opinion about it. So Paul Triple H Levesque conducted a media call yesterday ahead, as I mentioned, of the NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver event next week. Triple H spoke on a number of topics regarding the two-night event, but he also gave his thoughts on AEW wrestler Chris Jericho being announced as the next guest for Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions program on the WWE Network. This is what Triple H had to say, quote, "We're open for business. I've said it a million times on things. Vince McMahon has been very open for business. What's best for business, for WWE, and open to working with whoever. People sometimes create their own situations in their head. I just heard it today, but it's not shocking to me in any shape or form." Now, Triple H admitted that he was not surprised to hear about Jericho's upcoming appearance, even despite comments that Jericho has made since he left the company. He said, quote, "People make comments after people make comments about people after they leave. Oh, I received a nice call from Vince. Yeah, it's not shocking to me at all. The perception and the creation of what people believe in their heads when they have zero knowledge of it personally, it's a fantasy world that is created. Not shocking to me in any way." I find it very funny. Before I give you sort of an opinion on it, and we'll talk a bit more about it, because since it was announced, that was about 24 hours or so ago, I've had a few more thoughts on it since then, and I've thought a bit more about it and my feelings on it and all that kind of stuff. I love listening to those media calls. If you haven't, the audio is out there. A lot of people post the audio for Triple H for his media calls. I find them hilarious because obviously, those media calls primarily are wrestling websites. There are other media outlets. There are some bigger ones, your Sports Illustrated, comicbook.com, but you don't tend to get your ESPNs or big things on those media calls. Usually, it's the wrestling websites, right? Because they're the ones that drive the traffic, especially for something like NXT TakeOver, which is more of an underground, kind of gritty sort of atmosphere and vibe. They require those websites to be writing about them, to be talking about them, to actually really get some momentum and traction for the event. Yet, every time Triple H is on them, he just spends a lot of his time either giving very sort of strange compliments or backhanded insults or whatever, or having slight swipes at people or just the wrestling sort of journalism industry as a whole. And sometimes he's not wrong, but I do find it interesting when he does that because it just makes for a very interesting call. It really does. So what about Triple H's comments when he said that we're open for business? This is something Triple H says a lot, and he is right. He has said it several times, and he does say a lot. He always says, "Oh, WWE are open for business." And I remember when he said it before, it did get a lot of people talking because people went, "No, they're not." No, they're not. And it's true. WWE, it's a very broad statement. Is the response there. It's a very broad statement. Are WWE open for business in general of working with AEW? Are we ever going to see a talent trade between AEW and WWE? Are we ever going to see a talent trade between WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling? The answer is no, we're not, because that just isn't going to happen. WWE are notoriously difficult to work with other pro wrestling companies, and just historically that's not what they've done. On the very, very, very rarest of occasions have you seen a WWE contracted talent work for another company or make an appearance. I mean, it's happened, but it's a rarity. It's a rarity. They have very exclusive contracts, and if you're under contract to WWE, that's it. That's the situation when it comes to WWE. So this idea in the past of Triple H saying, we're open for business and we're willing to work with anyone if the offer's right and all that kind of stuff, the answer isn't, that's not necessarily factually accurate. Now, will they work with other companies in the sense of some of the companies they worked with in Europe and companies like Evolve in the past? Yes, they will, because WWE will purchase a stake in them, or they'll develop a relationship whereby eventually they can air their content on the network, which is what they did in the end. Or if they have links or affiliate links with them when it comes to, say, ICW in the United Kingdom over here, it helps facilitate talent that they can eventually use for themselves for NXT UK. It becomes almost a developmental system. In terms of a big company, a competitor, a rival like an AEW, WWE just doesn't doesn't do business in that kind of sense. They just don't, unless WWE wants something. But it's like in the Impact Wrestling situation with Ric Flair in 2012. They wanted to have Ric Flair for the Hall of Fame. They were inducting the Four Horsemen into the WWE Hall of Fame on WrestleMania weekend, and Ric Flair at the time was an Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling contracted talent. That was it. And I think TNA, Impact Wrestling, realised at the time, look, Ric Flair's going to show up regardless. Let's try and get something out of this. And that's how you had Christian Cage. Ironically, now Christian Cage is now with AEW, but Christian Cage at the time, former Impact Wrestling World Champion, he appeared at Slammiversary that year. That's how that kind of thing works. So that's not frequent. Again, that's rare, and that's how WWE does business. So every time in the past when Triple H says we're open for business, I kind of... It's not completely false, but you do kind of roll your eyes, because when they're open for business, it's about WWE controlling all of that and it all benefiting WWE. It becomes very one-sided. It's very one-sided. That's how WWE are open for business. It's all about what benefits them, and it's not a lot of, we'll give you this if you can get that. It doesn't really work like that, because WWE's the top. They're the peak. They can call their own shots. They're the biggest pro wrestling company in the world, and they always will be. So when it comes to working with other companies, one, they don't have to, and two, if they do, they can call their shots. It's not breaking news by any stretch of the imagination. That's just how it is. Now, I find it interesting that Triple H said that he hadn't heard about it, but it wasn't shocking to him in any shape or form. I think it just goes to show that in terms of the wider WWE stuff, Triple H isn't really involved. You know, he's involved with NXT, and he's the executive producer of NXT. His title at this point is this really long title. It's like Global Development and Talent. Basically, it means he's just the Performance Center, NXT, that's his deal. I know he has been at recent editions of Raw, not sure about SmackDown, but he has been at recent editions of Raw, working essentially as a producer / agent, and helping work with talent in that stretch. I don't know if he's continuing to do that. I know that I saw interviews with Randy Orton saying that's what Triple H had been doing recently, and that it was a massive benefit of him being there. But it was on this same call, actually, that he basically was asked about performing at WrestleMania, because of course Triple H isn't scheduled for WrestleMania this year. That's 2 WrestleManias in a row he hasn't competed on. And there was a lot of questioning about would he go up against AJ Styles, because AJ Styles had, by all accounts, AJ Styles is very direct in the matches when he wants them. In the same way that he really wanted to face The Undertaker last year, what did he do? He just went up to The Undertaker and he pestered him and he pestered him and he called him and he called him and he said, I want to face you at WrestleMania, let's make this happen. And then eventually they made it happen. AJ Styles this year said the same thing, but it was about Triple H. And Triple H revealed on this call that AJ Styles called him several times, and he asked him in person several times, I want to face you at WrestleMania, let's make this match happen, it can be great, you're one of the opponents I've always wanted to face, let's make it happen, let's make it happen, let's make it happen. And Triple H revealed on this media call that just, look, I mean, I would love to, but I'm so busy right now with my other responsibilities. I'm running NXT, I'm also running the Performance Center. I want to, if I'm going to do this match with you, I don't want to embarrass myself, and I want to do it justice, and I don't want to go into that ring not in the top physical condition, or not in the condition where I don't look silly. He's 52 years old, and he wants to do it right. I think also, from a selfish point of view, he probably thinks, look, I'd love to face you, AJ, but if we're going to do it, I want to make the most of it, and I want it to be in a stadium full of people, not partially full, so maybe he's looking at next year. Triple H's career is certainly winding down. I would even go as far as say maybe he's got one more match left in him. Not in terms of physically, he could probably carry on for 5 years if he wanted to, but I think in terms of his responsibilities and in terms of his transitioning to become, as I mentioned, running NXT and looking after all of that, I just don't know if he necessarily has the desire anymore. He seems pretty content about, if I never wrestle again, that's it. I think he's probably even said that in a couple of interviews, that, if I'm done, I'm done. It doesn't bother me. I'm more than happy doing what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, it's Triple H. It's Triple H, and maybe for his own ego, but more so probably for Vince McMahon in terms of he's thinking finances, dollars and cents. He's probably thinking, look, if you got Triple H, let's at least have you have one more match at WrestleMania, a retirement match, pick your opponent. You're too big of a star in the history of the company not to have that big final match, not to have that big WrestleMania moment again. So I think Triple H has at least one more match left in him. I'd love to see him face AJ Styles. I really, really would. Whether he has his final match against AJ or not, I don't know. It'd be a fitting opponent. I mean, talk about AJ Styles. He'd have had the final match of The Undertaker and Triple H. That's not bad. That really, really isn't bad. That isn't bad. But going back to the Jericho on the Broken Skull session stuff, as I mentioned, I did want to talk about another thing that Triple H said when he talked about the perception of Vince McMahon once people have left the company. When Triple H said, quote, "People make comments all the time about people after they leave. Oh, I received a nice call from Vince. Yeah, it's not shocking to me at all. The perception and creation of what people believe in their heads when they have zero knowledge of it personally, it's fantasy world that is creative, not shocking to me in any way." Now, what I will say is most of the time, honestly, when someone big leaves WWE, even when the Big Show, Paul White, just left WWE, even with Christian, now he signed with AEW, and Chris Jericho, and all of these big names, I don't think anyone ever has anything bad to say about Vince McMahon. Realistically, as a person, they might say that his creative ideas, or they felt stifled by his opportunities or lack of opportunities that were given to them. But I don't think anyone, to a man or a woman, actually has said, you know what, Vince McMahon is this, he's that, he's a terrible person, he's a bad boss, anything like that. I don't think anyone said that. Some people just say that he's difficult to talk to, or it's difficult to get in front of him, it's difficult to have him give ideas, or it's difficult to pitch ideas to him. So I don't think when Triple H is saying that of Triple H, it's never surprising to me when it comes to, like, say, Paul White recently, when he said, oh, you know, Vince called me and said that I'm a big asset to their company and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's ever a problem. I don't think Vince McMahon ever shuns people unless they've left in under a dark cloud. Well, like, you know, Kurt Angle, when he left in 2006. I don't think Vince McMahon's just not like that. I think people's gripes when they leave WWE is more so with the system that Vince has created as opposed to Vince McMahon himself. Their biggest issue is the corporate method of making pro wrestling doesn't work, and going through all of these different layers and going through the producers and the agents and the creative teams and all that kind of stuff, that's the biggest problem. So I don't know if necessarily, some people think of Vince McMahon as this big bad monster. Me, myself, as a fan, I've never thought of that. I just think that when stuff is bad in WWE, you hold the head person accountable, and that's Vince McMahon. That's why he gets that rap. 24 hours removed, though, because I do want to finish up talking about Steve Austin and Chris Jericho again. My opinion really hasn't changed that much on it. It's a fantastic win-win for both parties. It really is. It really does make that WrestleMania Sunday must-see. Some people have been saying they're looking forward to this interview more than WrestleMania itself. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm sure they'll talk about AEW, because you can't not talk about AEW. If they play it up as, so how does it feel since retiring in 2017, and they don't talk about Jericho in New Japan, or they don't talk about Jericho in AEW, then the fans would just see right through that. There's an elephant, a big elephant in the room there, and that's that Chris Jericho's an AEW wrestler. So there's no doubt they'll talk about it. WWE Network isn't really afraid of referencing stuff outside of WWE. They've done it a ton of time in the past, whether it's TNA Impact Wrestling, whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's, you know, this would be the first time AEW itself really has been mentioned on the WWE Network, but they're not afraid of doing that. So I'd be more surprised if they don't reference it. And it's Jericho and Austin. I mean, they don't care what they say. So they'll say it. They'll talk about it. So I'm excited to see that. Does it mean that AEW and WWE have a relationship? No. But as I said yesterday, one thing it does prove is that there is, at the very, very least, there is a line of communication there. Now, Steve Austin did an interview with Sports Illustrated after the announcement and basically said that Jericho had reached out to him after Steve Austin had done the interview with The Undertaker on the Broken Skull Sessions. He sent him a text going, that was a great interview. Steve Austin said thanks and all that kind of stuff. And then Jericho called him, and they came up with the idea of, why don't we have Chris Jericho come on here? And obviously nothing gets put on the network without Vince's approval. So Steve Austin sends Vince McMahon a text, goes, what about Chris Jericho? And Vince McMahon says, yep, all good, go ahead. And Steve Austin, then realising the situation and the gravity of what this could be, says, just want to double check, are you sure you want Chris Jericho on the podcast? And Vince McMahon gives him the thumbs up emoji. That's it. Because Vince McMahon knows it's good business. Vince McMahon knows that's good business. And he knows that, I mean, AEW benefit to a point there. They'll benefit a little bit from the exposure, unless, as I mentioned yesterday, unless they worked out some kind of a deal where they can shoot something for their broadcast, which I don't know if they will. But I think Vince McMahon probably realises that we're the ones that are benefiting. You know, it's our platform. It's our platform. You know, it's us or Peacock or whoever. They're the ones getting subscribers, not AEW. So I don't see WWE win more there. They win more there, ultimately, and I think he realises that, so that's why. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Triple H's response to Chris Jericho appearing on the Broken Skull sessions with Steve Austin on the WWE Network? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. Be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.